Welcome back to another episode of Rock Boys Football Deal. The college football playoff quarterfinals are set. Boise State, Penn State. It doesn't take a rocket scientist to kind of know where this game starts and probably stops as well. You're looking at the best running back in the country, Ashton Jeanty, going up against one of the best front sevens in the country in Penn State. This Penn State team is becoming, at least in my opinion, an extremely dangerous team in these college football playoffs. Go back to the last couple of years, Penn State's been solid. They've had a defense that certainly can win a national championship. They never really had the offense that was explosive enough to kind of balance it out. I feel like Coach Koldnicki has brought that to Penn State. And even though it wasn't necessarily the cleanest offensive performance against SMU, go back 2 weeks ago when they played the Oregon Ducks. Like, this Penn State offense can put a lot of points up on the board. It can find explosive plays pushing the ball down the field. You certainly can find explosive plays in the run game. That's the difference for me with this Penn State team. Excited to get into the matchup now. Before we do, and as always, just want to say thank you to you guys. And this is going to be a fun one. A lot of different ways you can look at it, because you look at Boise State, hasn't necessarily played the strength of schedule of Penn State. Their only loss was on the road to the number one team in the country. Like, this Boise State team has been very, very tough to deal with for a lot of really good football teams. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel. Dill, without further ado, I feel like you have to start with Ashton Jeanty, this Boise State rushing attack, going up against Penn State, Abdul Carter, this front seven. How do you see that matchup playing out here?
I mean, I think it starts with him having to rip some big ones off, because you look, I don't really see this Boise State team just going up and down the field, like kind of beating Penn State up in the run game. But that is the problem with playing Ashton Jeanty, is he has that in him where, like, you look at games like Oregon, even against the top competition, he still has that ability to just give you a couple individual unbelievable plays. And that's where I think you look at Boise State kind of getting themselves into this game. If they can do that and put Penn State behind, if he can make one of those individual greatness plays happen, that is kind of the avenue.
And one of the fascinating storylines is, you look at Penn State, what do they want to do in their front seven, specifically on the defensive line? They want to penetrate. They want to create negative plays. When you do that, sometimes it leaves some creases, and sometimes it leaves some one-on-one matchups with some safeties in space. And there's not a better running back in the country, not only at making open field defenders miss, but then making you pay not for 20 yards. We're going to make you pay for 70 yards and go score a touchdown. Do you get one or two of those from Ashton Jeanty? That's probably where it starts. I think the second thing is, can Penn State continue to create those? It's kind of that battle between, hey, can you avoid giving up the explosives to Ashton Jeanty, but also at the same time create some negative plays yourself and put this Boise State offense behind the chains? That's not where they want to operate. And you look at why Boise State's offense has been so solid. One, Ashton Jeanty. Two, they don't take sacks. They don't turn the football over. They stay on schedule on offense. If you're Penn State, you want to put Maddox Madsen in this Boise State offense in kind of an uncomfortable spot where they're behind the chains, and then you're pinning your ears back with Abdul Carter and Danny Dennis Sutton to get after the quarterback. Can you take away Ashton Jeanty? Can you make Maddox Madsen win this football game through the air? And can you make this Boise State offensive line, which has been solid against group of five teams, can they hold up in pass protection against some of the better edge rushers?
Honestly, I don't know that you totally take Ashton Jeanty out of this game.
You can, yeah.
He's that guy. But again, it's putting a lid on him. It's not letting him make you turn a 15-yard gain into a 7-yard gain. And again, that is the fundamental problem with playing him, is he's done a really good job. So you look, back end, safeties, corners, they all need to be tackling. And if they can do that, again, I don't really see Boise State moving up and down on them. But, like, those big plays, they can put Penn State's offense in the jam. They can put that defense like that. That's just not where Penn State
can. I think another storyline is, what do you get from Maddox Madsen, who I think is a perfect fit in this Boise State offense as, quick release, doesn't take sacks, certainly doesn't turn the football over, only 3 interceptions on the year. Boise State actually 0.6 turnovers per game. That leads the country. Like, they just don't turn the football over. They don't take negative plays. But you feel like in this football game against a defense like Penn State, you're probably going to need a little bit more than just a point guard of the offense that Maddox Matson's been doing a really good job of. You're probably going to need a little bit of a difference maker at the quarterback spot. Can Maddox Matson give you that? That's probably the question you're answering. If you're Penn State, you're walking up safeties. You're loading the box, trying to take away the run game. And I'm not saying Boise State doesn't have difference makers on the outside, but if you're Penn State, you'll probably take your chances with your boundary cornerbacks who've been good, as opposed to giving Boise State a light box where they can have some success running the football. Let's flip the sides here, Dill. This Penn State offense, again, to me, is the difference maker. It's what's different about this Penn State team than what we've seen in 2023 and in 2022. Drew, although not the greatest game against SMU, was really good against Oregon, and he's been really good being a difference maker at the quarterback spot when he needs to be. People get on him for having a little bit more interceptions than he did in 2023. That's what you need from Drew. I'm not saying you got to throw interceptions, but I'm saying you got to go try to make some difference-making throws at the quarterback spot, and he's been doing a damn good job of it throughout the 2024 season for Penn State.
Yeah, I agree because there's been a little bit of inconsistency from a pure execution standpoint. Again, guys dropping screens, like those type of things, you'd probably like to see Penn State cut down on.
Yep.
Those things happen. Again, that's what's made Penn State a little bit different is Drew Allar, as much as maybe you can criticize certain interceptions or maybe consistency, but he is giving them playmaking ability. And even when extending plays with his legs, making big things happen, those things, even though they played a really sloppy game against SMU, they were still able to hit a couple of those plays that, again, get them down the field. And their defense certainly gives them a cushion where they don't need to play perfect all the time. But he is giving them a lot more playmaking ability that they just didn't have in big moments. And you kind of need to have it because against those really good defenses, you can't just go perfectly execute up and down the field.
Explosiveness trumps consistency every single day of the week in college football and offense. It's really hard to have all 11 college football players not make mistakes, not drop balls, not take negative plays, and go 14 plays, 80 yards, and score a touchdown. If you can, even if you're not as consistent, but you can manufacture some of those explosive plays, that matters a lot more. All the best offenses in the country in terms of points per game are top of the country in 20-plus yard plays. And so Penn State's been able to find more of those in 2024. That's kind of what makes them different. And you look at Boise State, actually been quite solid in the front seven against the run. Now, I don't know if they've seen a Penn State offensive line and two running backs in Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. I don't know if they've seen those kind of guys and those kind of bodies, but they've been solid against the run. Where Boise State struggles in the back end, they give up 7.6 yards per pass. That's 82nd in the country, but they do get after the quarterback. And sacking the quarterback 10% of the time, that's number 3 in the country. Ahmad Hassanian, 34 quarterback hurries, been quite unblockable in the Mountain West coming off the edge. I think Penn State can have some success running the football. They've had success running the football against most teams in the country, but you do think if Penn State kind of separates, you're probably attacking this Boise State secondary. What I'm looking for more from a Penn State perspective is, we know Tyler Warren's a guy. That's not news to anybody. You feel like if Penn State is a bona fide contender to win a national championship, you're going to need some more plays to be made by your wide receivers. And you've started to see it, especially in that Oregon game. Can you continue to see that against Boise State on New Year's Eve is probably the last thing I'm looking at here.
Because you've seen Wallace kind of be the guy, but there have been way too many moments where guys just aren't open. And again, Drew takes a lot of the heat for some of the consistency issues, but a lot of that does start with their boundary guys not being able to create a ton of separation.
Yeah.
At times. And again, Tyler Warren, he's been the guy that they can lean on. And I do think that's an important part of having
100%
successful offense. Penn State hasn't really had this guy. Saquon Barkley or something, a guy who you can really just build your offense around. And it doesn't matter that everyone knows he's going to be the guy. You can't take him out of it. So they have that, which is obviously a huge weapon. But you would like to see their kind of outside.
Yeah, and Coach Kolnick, does so, it's so you hear when people break down Penn State games, all right, take away Tyler Warren, you can stop this Penn State offense. One, that's not true because they can run the football exceptionally well. Two, taking away Tyler Warren's a lot easier said than done because Coach Kolnick is so creative in terms of how he gets that kid involved. because Tyler Warren is so talented. He can do just about everything you want a tight end to do, and really just an offensive weapon to do. Let's get into the pick. I'll start. I like Penn State here. I like Penn State a lot here, actually. I think Penn State's playing their best football down the stretch. You look at this Penn State defense, and just to me, it's hard to see Boise State just running the football on Penn State. I think the front seven's too good. I think they're going to create negative plays. They're going to force Maddox Madsen to be the difference maker that I'm not sure he is yet. And I just don't know if Boise State has seen these kind of running backs and offensive linemen to stop Penn State on offense. Give me Penn State.
And I get that logic. I'm probably going to take Boise State to cover. And it starts with, again, I do think Ashton Genty, there's a decent probability he hits a couple of those plays. It's been hard to stop for everyone who they've played. And I look at Penn State's offense, they just don't give me enough consistency in terms like up and down the field to really just blow teams out in this type of way, especially when it's good, like a good Boise State team that doesn't make a ton of mistakes. Like their defense has created a lot of havoc, giving their offense good chances, taking the ball away. I mean, that SMU game, they scored 2 defensive touchdowns. If they don't score those, that's probably like a 7-0 game going into the second half.
I think that's fair. I like to see Penn State be more consistent at times. This is, to me, one of those games where just the body types are going to look different. You know, I don't know if Boise, it's different. You can grade out well and look good playing in the Mountain West, but we've seen that happen a couple times this year when you bump up and play an offensive line that looks like Penn State and you're trying to tackle guys like Katron Allen and Nick Singleton. Football at its core is a side speed game, and I think Penn State has too much of it. And I also think this Penn State team is really starting to turn it up, which is exciting as well. I don't know if Boise State can block Abdul Carter either. They got a really good tackle, but Abdul Carter.
They're not blocking him, but again, I just think I almost don't want to discount what Ashton Genty is. He's one of the best running backs I've ever seen.
Yeah, that's fair. All right, we'll close it out there. Appreciate you guys rocking with it. If y'all do enjoy the content, consider subscribing to the channel, and we'll talk to y'all later. Peace.